So, first of all, these instructions, these things taught by Khenpo Gangshar, these instructions on the ways to practice or the philosophical schools, are wonderful instructions. And so I think that in order to teach them, it really helps if you have some belief in them, if you have some real faith and excitement about doing them. Because if you have excitement, then you'll be able to be diligent about them. You'll be able to have faith and instruction, and you'll be able to have faith and interest in them, and this will just keep developing. And so, in order to help you develop the faith and develop this, in order to develop, if you understand the history and sort of the lineage of the power and the blessings of these instructions, then this will be very helpful for you. So first I thought I'd like to talk about the history. So Khenpo Gangshar is not one of these masters who lived many centuries ago in some remote time. He's actually someone from recent times, from just a few decades ago, someone who developed real realization and experience, who developed real accomplishment, and then gave many teachings. And these were very helpful and powerful teachings that were unlike any other teachings, that and there were also teachings that had exceptional power and exceptional exceptional blessings to them. And so if you have faith and you have belief in them, then I think it will help you to understand. And so for that reason, I'd like to talk about why you should be excited about receiving these teachings. As it is said in Shantideva's The Way of the Bodhisattva, in order to embrace and increase these, then we should really develop excitement in our minds. And so if you're excited about something, you need to do something. If you need to do something and you are somewhat regretful about it, you aren't certain about it, then you aren't going to be able to do well with it. But if, on the other hand, you have real excitement about what you're going to do, you're going to be able to develop, you're going to be able to increase what you're doing. And so for that reason, I would like to talk about the development of excitement about this. And so in order to help you develop this excitement, I want to tell you about the connection, the lineage that this teaching comes from. And so this teaching on the philosophical schools or the ways to practice primarily comes from the tradition of Mipam Rinpoche, Ju Mipam Rinpoche. And Ju Mipam Rinpoche is one of the three lamas who was known in the 19th and early 20th century as the three Jamguns. These three Jamguns were first Jamgun Kontrol Yongdzin Gyatso, or also known as Jamgun Kontrol Lodar Tai, Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo, and also the third was Jamgun Mipam Rinpoche. And so these are the three Jamguns who were well-known Tibetan masters. And Jamgun Mipam Rinpoche followed Jamgun Kontrol Lodar Tai and Jamyang Khyentse Wangpo as his root lamas. And then he continued his activity and taught the Dharma, spread the Dharma. And one of the things that he did was to go to Thrangu Monastery in eastern Tibet. And when he was in Thrangu Monastery, there was a retreat center on the hill behind Thrangu Monastery. And he spent 5 years in that retreat center. And it was there that he composed a portion of his Gateway to Knowledge. So there's the famous text called A Gateway to Knowledge by Mipam Rinpoche. And this Gateway to Knowledge has three main sections. The first of these sections is made up of 10 points. The second of these is 4 summaries of the Dharma, and the third is of the 4 proper awarenesses, or correctly distinguishing awarenesses. And so of these 3 different sections, the main section of the work is the 10 points. And these 10 points were composed while Mipam Rinpoche was staying in the retreat center at Thrangu Monastery. And as he composed them, he had great compassion, he had great aspirations for these. And so later, there was a monastic college, a shutter, that was founded at Thrangu Monastery in the tradition of Mipam Rinpoche's. So because of this, it had great blessings. The Khenchen Thrangu Rinpoche came to Thrangu Monastery, and when he came there, he had various pure appearances, and he said at the time, "Oh, this is really a place where the blessings of Mipam Rinpoche are really strong." And so this is a wonderful place. It's the particular blessings of Mipam Rinpoche. It's a place where, because of his compassion, because of his intentions and his aspirations, he was able to take care of the shutter and to take care of us. And so it's like we are now, all of us who can read this text, we are able to be taken care of by his compassion and aspirations. It's like the light of his compassion has struck us as well. We're able to receive the blessings of them. So we can have real faith. We can have real confidence in this. And so for myself, I had the opportunity to study these teachings at the time, and because I received them at the time, I have the real confidence that if I tell them to you, then these will be something that will be very beneficial and very helpful for all of you. Now, generally in Tibet, there are many different Dharma traditions that spread there, and all of these are the same in that they're the Dharma of the Buddha. In terms of the actual view, in terms of the philosophical schools, the ways of practice, there are really not that great differences between them. But in terms of our own individual practices, there are many different instructions, many various instructions that the Buddha gave. And they're all different in many ways. And so they're all different in many ways, and there are traditions of each of these. There are streams of each of these. And so each has their own source. And when we want to uphold and maintain that source of each of these, that is why there are the traditions of the different schools that developed. Now, in the Kagyu and the Nyingma traditions, we do the meditations of Mahamudra and Dzogchen. And when we do the meditation of Mahamudra and Dzogchen, if we have a philosophical school, if we have a view that really accords with the experience of Mahamudra and Dzogchen, then this is something that is really helpful. It'll help. This view is helpful for our practice. If our experience and if our view and if our understanding and our experience are something that are in accord and that get along with our practice of Mahamudra and Dzogchen, then our practice will be easy. It will fit with our views. Not only that, it will really help our develop practice. It'll really help us develop real experience. If, on the other hand, we have a view that when we study the texts, we have one particular view, and when we do practice, we have another view, and these two don't fit with each other, then it doesn't work so easily at all. And so here, when we're studying the view of Mipam Rinpoche, this is something that really fits very well with the view of Mahamudra and of Dzogchen. And so it really fits with the particular features of the view and of the philosophical schools. So the author of this text that we are looking at is Khenpo Gangshar. And Khenpo Gangshar is one of the main people to really hold the lineage of Mipam Rinpoche. And so when he came to understand the view and the philosophical schools, he really did this in a way that followed Mipam Rinpoche. And so for those of us who are practicing Mahamudra and who are practicing Dzogchen, understanding this is really helpful and really beneficial. And so he is someone who had a really particular, special way of expressing it. Sometimes when we look at the texts written by the ancient masters from India or by the masters from the old centuries in Tibet, sometimes we look at these texts and they're really difficult to understand. But when we look at a text by a modern master, someone from our own time, it's really easy to understand, really simple and really beneficial.
Tene ta tejendo tanda lama konge suate.
So these words spoken by the Lama are really important words, but they're also really important because now for you students, for all of us students, we're really fortunate. And why is it that we are so fortunate? Well, there's an example that we give about this in Tibetan. It said that when you have the connection between a student and the teacher, there is the hook of compassion, and then there is the eye of faith. And you have to have both of these. You have to have both the hook of compassion and the eyelet of faith. Because if there is just the Lama's hook of compassion, then that hook of compassion goes and it tries to catch on to something, but if there's no eyelet of faith, there's nothing for it to hook onto. It's just like some round spherical thing. There's nothing that it can grab onto, and it doesn't do any good. On the other hand, if you have the hook of compassion, if you have the eyelet of faith, but you don't have the hooklet of compassion, then the eyelet of faith, there's nothing to catch onto that either, and so it doesn't do any good. So you have to have both the hook of compassion and the eyelet of faith. So for you all have faith in the Dharma. And so because of that, there is this hook of compassion and the eyelet of faith. These two have come together. And for that reason, the teachings of the Buddha have been able to come here. So actually, when we think about it, the Buddhist teachings, they spread first in India. And India is a place that is really far away. It's a long way away from here. There is a huge ocean in between the two places. And so in old days, there was no way that there could be much contact between the two. Nowadays, yes, we do have intercontinental flights, and we can fly from one to the other. But, and we can go there rather quickly, but still, especially if you're like me, it's kind of difficult. You fly there, you get really tired, you're just exhausted for a few days after you get there. It's a really long way to go, and it seems really hard that for the teachings of the Buddha to come over here. But it's like the compassion of the Buddha has really pushed it all together. It's really been pushed together quite a bit. And so now it's like, from one side, the Indians are being pushed over here by the compassion. Then your faith is strong. And we've got this faith and this compassion come together. We're being smushed together in this way. And so I'm able to come here, and I'm able to teach you. I'm able to meet you. And this is really wonderful. So this is a really wonderful opportunity. But even if we think about it, if we compare to how it was a couple of decades ago, 10 or 20 years ago, then at that time, when you'd come to teachings, you could hear the teachings and listen to the teachings, and that was about all you could do. There just weren't that many books back then. It was really difficult to study Dharma at that time. But now there are many translators who have translated a lot of works into English, and so you can all look at them, you can enjoy them, you can read and study them all. This is a really wonderful opportunity for this. So the Dharma has spread here in America. Not only has this Dharma spread here, you've also had the chance to encounter it. And when you encounter it, you can listen to it from the Dharma. But it's not that you just have to listen to it from the Lama. Of course, listening to the Dharma from the mouth of the Lama is a wonderful opportunity, but it's sometimes hard if you want to study it in detail. So now you can actually read the works, you can study them, and you can really get into them in detail. Now, when the teachings of the Buddha spread to the snowland of Tibet, when they translated something, the first word they put is in the Indian language, so in Sanskrit, giving the title in Sanskrit. And the reason that they put this is to remind us of the kindness of translators. You better remember this one. Remind us of the kindness of translators, because at first the Tibetans didn't speak Sanskrit, and so when the Dharma was brought into Tibet, they wouldn't be able to read the texts, and even if they could sound them out, they wouldn't be able to understand. what the texts were saying. And so then when the translators actually translated these texts and spread them in Tibet, it's to help us remember how kind they actually were in order to translate these texts. And so in order for us to remember that kindness as being the kindness as it is. In the Tibetan texts, they always begin by saying in the Sanskrit, oh, I'm seeing here that there's something left off here. It should say in Tibetan. In the Sanskrit, it says in the Sanskrit. This is the title. And so now we have, in English, we have a lot of translators who are translating a lot of things, and they're making plans to translate more into English. And so this is really wonderful opportunity, and it's a great way to help spread the Dharma. And it is also an extremely great fortune for all of you. There's actually a story about this from the history. There was a great Indian scholar named Nritijana, which means the wisdom of, or the gnosis or wisdom of mindfulness. And he was a great scholar, a really amazing scholar. And he went to Tibet. But as he was on the way to Tibet with his translator, the translator passed away on the road. He died on the way. The life on the road didn't agree with him. He passed away, and then it became very difficult for him. He went places. This great scholar Nritijana was unable to actually teach the Dharma. He'd go everywhere, and people would say, "Oh, he's just this sort of Indian devil or something." You know, this he can't do anything. He got so frustrated, he got drunk all the time, and he got drunk and would go places and not be able to communicate with anything. It was a really difficult thing. And so later, when Atisha went to Tibet, he said, there was this great scholar. He was one of the best. There was no one in the west or the east of India who could compare to them. And he went to Tibet, and he just got completely wasted. So, I'm sorry, the words for getting drunk and for being a shepherd sound almost exactly the same. This is not an instance of the kindness of translators. And so he didn't get drunk. He became a shepherd, and he had to go from village to village as a shepherd. And then Atisha said to him, "This is such a terrible waste that someone who is one of the greatest scholars in the east and the west of Tibet, of India, had to become a shepherd in Tibet." And so there's this history, and so this shows us how important it is to have translators, and how fortunate we are to have translators. Such as the other day, I was up in Ellsworth, and when I was in Ellsworth, I had to give a little talk, but my translator was on vacation, and it was really difficult. I couldn't say much more than just hello, how are you? And so I'm sorry. And so it's important. It's really important to have translators. You should remember how important it is, and not think of translators as being something unimportant, but support them. And also, when they translate something, it's important to study it and to actually practice it. And if you do study and practice these, it is really helpful. And so when we have Dharma books, in the old days in the West, there just weren't many Dharma books. We had the Western books, we had histories, we had stories, we had various magazines and newspapers and so forth. And so with these books, we'd do anything. We'll throw them on the floor, bring them in the bathroom, do whatever. Didn't worry about paying any respect to them. But with Buddhist books, we shouldn't do that. It's important for us to be really respectful of them. So we should make sure not to put them on the floor, not to put them underneath other things, not to put things on top of them, not to be disrespectful of them, not to step upon them. But we should always put them in good places, in clean places, and have faith and devotion in them. And so when we think about this, sometimes people look at this and they think about it and they say, that's really stupid. Actually, a book it's just paper and it's ink. There's really nothing valuable about it. It's just a book. It's just paper and ink. So it's kind of stupid to feel like you have to always take good care of it in this way. So many people have said this to me, but actually that's not how it is. Although the book may be made out of paper and ink, it actually is something that has the power to help us develop loving kindness, to develop compassion. It has the power to help us develop bodhicitta, to develop our full knowing, develop our wisdom, to develop experience and realization. And so it has that power to create all these qualities in us. It's not just some thing that we should just throw on the ground and disrespect. If we have real faith and real interest in this book, then we will be able to really develop the power of it. It's something we'll be able to develop, experience the power of it within our own mind streams. And so we shouldn't treat it as if it's something disposable, as if it's something that we can just lie down and rip and not do anything but do whatever we want to. But we should take good care of them. It's like if you have a gold ornament, a piece of gold jewelry. If you have gold jewelry, you think this is something really valuable, you take good care of it, you polish it, you put it in nice places, you take good care of it, you have a jewelry box for it, you take good care of it. And so you see the value, you see in the value in it, because you see the value, you take good care of it. And it's the same with Dharma books. When you see the value of the Dharma books, then you can really, then you can think to yourself, this is something that's really valuable. And if you do this, then it's something that'll be helpful for you. You appreciate the value of the book, and because, and you see that it is something that has the power to extract you from the suffering of samsara. And so because you have that faith, then you'll be able to really experience the power that is inherent within that book. And this is something that will be very helpful for you. So within this text on the philosophical schools or the ways of practice, primarily there are two different types of philosophical schools. There are the Buddhist school, or the non-Buddhist schools, and the Buddhist schools. And so these are all different ways. But when we call them philosophical schools, or when we call them in Tibetan the Drupta, or in Sanskrit Siddhanta, what it is Drup means to prove, and Ta in Tibetan means the ends of this. So when you prove something logically, you come to some sort of an end. And so that is what we mean when we say a Drupta, or a philosophical school or way of practice. And so so we prove something logically, and then we get to the real point or the essence of something. So when we are doing the meditation of Mahamudra or Dzogchen, then primarily we have two types of views. We have the view of direct perception, and we have the view of inference. And when we have and in order to develop the view of direct perception, if we have the view of inference as sort of a helper, as in this, then this is something that is really good for developing the view that comes from direct perception. And so for that reason, having the view that we develop through inferential reasoning is very important. We come to understand things through logic and reasoning, and it is very helpful in this. And so in terms of this, there are many different ways that we can prove things logically, that we can talk about things, many different views. And here they're all taught very clearly. And so and that is why it is so important and very helpful to have this text on these philosophical schools. Now, when we talk about the traditions of the philosophical schools and those that spread into Tibet, we first often talk about some schools that spread in India. And in India, among the non-Buddhist schools, there are what we call here the 5 types of the Tarkas, or sophists, of the 5 Tarka schools. And now, actually, there are many, many different philosophies in India, but they can all be sort of summed up as these 5 groups of the Tarkas, and these 5 schools of the Tarkas. And so there are 2 basic types of these. There are those that have the nihilist views and those that have the eternalist views. So actually here in the text, it first talks about the eternalist schools, and then it talks about the nihilist schools. But The other day, I was reading a text by the Dalai Lama on the philosophical schools. And in his text on the philosophical schools, the Dalai Lama said that when we study this, although it is traditionally presented with the eternalist schools first and the nihilist schools second, it's actually easier to understand if you present the nihilist schools first and then the eternalist schools second. And so I also thought that that would be easier to understand. And so first I will talk about the nihilist schools, which is the Charvaka school. So what is the main view of the Charvaka, the nihilistic view of the Charvaka? Well, the main view is different from other philosophical schools. Other schools say that there is karma, cause and effect. They say that there are previous and future lives. But the Charvaka school is different. The Charvaka school says that there's no reincarnation, there's no karma, there's no cause and effect in previous lives. There's no previous life, there's no future life. And so for that reason they say that if you work for the purposes of this life only, that is enough. That's all you have to, that is good to work for the purposes of this life. And so for that reason, this is why other schools teach that there is previous and future lives and why there is karma, cause and effect. And so that is the view of the basic view of the Charvaka school, which spread in India. And the Dalai Lama said about this, that in India you have this view of the Charvaka school, but now we have also a lot of scientists. And actually science is really wonderful. It's a great thing. It is really good at examining what we actually see. It's if we can actually see something, if we can truly prove something, then we say that it's true, we accept it. If in science we say that something, if we cannot see something or we cannot prove it, then we say that it cannot be proven. And so when we think about something like future lives or previous lives, is this something that we can actually prove? Well, in science it's not actually something. You cannot see it. There's no way you can actually prove it. But at the same time, you can't say that it does not exist because you can't prove that it is not there either. There's no way that you can actually definitively say that there are no future lives. And so in this way science is really good, because science is saying that we just haven't decided this. We don't know this for sure. And so science for that reason is very truthful, it's very straightforward and very good in this respect. The Dalai Lama also said that when he was traveling in Japan, he saw an article in a newspaper where a scientist was asked whether it could be proven that there was no past or future lives, and the scientist actually said, "Well, you can't prove that. The science does not say that there's no past and future lives. It just says that you cannot prove that there are past and future lives." And so, in this way, actually, the science is really good. It's really wonderful and straightforward in this. And so, this position of science is something that, actually I don't really have the capability, I don't have the opportunity to really have this sort of a dialogue with scientists. But the Dalai Lama does have he does have the ability to do this. He does have the opportunities to do this, and he's had a lot of dialogues. He's held a lot of meetings and dialogues with scientists, and he says that they are very straightforward. They're very truthful about this. And so when they talk about whether or not there are previous and future lives, they say, well, we don't see them. We can't find them. We do not see them. And so if you say, well, we can't find them and we can't see them, does that mean that they don't exist? They say, we aren't sure. We're not sure that they are there. We're not sure that they are there. We're not sure that they aren't there. And so this is something we're going to look at in the future, gradually take a look at in the future. Similarly, when they talk about the makeup of the mind, the way the mind is, then they say we're looking at this gradually. And so in the future, we will see how it is. We can't definitely say anything right now. And so this is a really important point for us to understand about this nature of the scientific view. We need to understand this point. And so I think that actually this is a really good point. I think actually that most people, when you say, is there reincarnation? Are there previous and future lives? Most people say, yeah, there probably is something. They say, I think that there probably is something. And if you think that there is a future life and you can make some preparations for that future life, then that is really good. So you think that there's a future life, and then you can think, okay, I need to do this to make sure that in the future I will not suffer, and in the future I'll have a good situation and that I can be happy. And so for this reason, thinking that there probably is a future life is really helpful. So, the Dalai Lama, when he talks about the previous and the future lives, he's, maybe some people say maybe there is a future life, maybe there isn't a future life. We can't necessarily be 100% sure about it. Maybe there's future lives, maybe there aren't. But if we think that maybe there's a future life, and it's best to think, well, there just might be a future life, and maybe I should do something. Because if we now make the preparations for that future life, when it comes to the time for it to happen, we'll be in a good position to deal with it. If not, if we think, there's no future life, maybe there is, maybe there isn't, but I don't think there's going to be. If we think in that way, when it comes to the actual point of we've died and now it's time for that next life, if you haven't done that, then there's a real problem. On the other hand, if you think maybe there's a future life, maybe there isn't, but maybe there is, I'm going to make the preparations for a future life anyways, then when it comes to that point, if there's no future life, it's no problem. You haven't lost anything. And if there is a future life, then it's like, this is easy. I've gotten myself ready. I know what to do in this future lives. And so then it's really helpful for us to believe in there being future lives. And so, in general, in this text on the philosophical schools, it talks about how there are the non-Buddhist schools and there are the Buddhist schools. And then again, among the non-Buddhist schools, it talks about how there are the nihilist and the eternalist views. And so here I've told a little bit of the history of the nihilist views, and I think that is enough for this morning's session.